10.5 talks about the slope-intercept form of a line. And the slope-intercept equation is what we're going to be using, which we have right here in this box. And it's y equals mx plus b. M stands for the slope, which is what we did in 10.4. And the point 0b is going to be our y-intercept. So the first problems here say, find the slope and y-intercept of each line. Essentially what we're going to do here, we're going to do a stare and compare. We're going to look at the equation that we have here, and we're going to compare it to our y equals mx plus b form. And so what it is we're trying to find the slope m, and we're trying to find the coordinates of the y-intercept, which is going to be the points 0 and b. So if I do a stare and compare, I can see that for my problem here that my m, the number in front of the x, is going to be 2/3. My y-intercept is always going to have an x-coordinate of 0, and the y-coordinate of the y-intercept will be whatever my letter b is. In this case, 5. Alright, so for my next problem, again, I'm going to do a stare and compare. I'm going to look at this equation here. I'm going to compare it to that one up there. The first thing I notice is that this equation here, that negative 3x plus y equals 2, is not in this form. So I need to get it in that form, meaning I need to solve it for the letter y. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to add 3x to both sides. I'm going to add 3x to both sides. So those will cancel. That's going to leave me with, now notice these here are not like terms. So that's just 3x plus 2. Okay, now I'm in the right format. So my m here will be my number 3, and my y-intercept is going to have coordinates 0 and 2. Alright, let's try part C. So again, I need to solve this equation for the letter y. I'm going to move the 3x by minusing 3x on both sides. So that's going to leave me with a negative 4y equals a negative 3x plus 4. Now notice I'm not combining the negative 3x and the 4 because they're not like terms. I still need to solve for y, so I'm going to have to divide everything here by my number, negative 4, all the way across. So those negative 4's are going to cancel, so I'm going to have y equals. Now a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so that's positive 3 over 4x. A positive 4 divided by a negative 4, a negative 1. So now I can say, okay, well, my m is 3 over 4, and my y-intercept is going to have coordinates 0 and negative 1. Alright, so let me scroll down here to the next problems, and it says, write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form with, and it's given me a value of m and it's given me a value of b. Since I'm going to write my equation in slope-intercept form, I'm going to go ahead and write that right here on the side, y equals mx plus b. And so for my first problem, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill in the m and fill in the b. So that's going to be y equals, m is 5 now, so 5x plus b, b is the number 3, and there's my equation. Alright, my next problem I'll do it the same way. Y equals m in this case is negative 3 with an x, plus b, since b is a negative 3, I can just write minus 3. And then for this last one here, y equals m is 2/3, so 2/3 x. If you notice, my number b is 0, so I can go ahead and just stop at that point right there. Okay, the next problem here says graph using the slope-intercept method. So again, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to write down my slope-intercept equation, y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to do a little stare and compare. I want to find two things. I want to find what my m is, and I want to find the coordinates of my y-intercept. So I first notice that my m is negative 4. Now, because I'm going to be doing graphing, I'm going to think of my negative 4 as a fraction. I'm going to think about it as negative 4 over 1 because when we discussed these problems back in 10.4, the slope, we always considered it the rise over the run. So I want to think of it as a fraction here. My b in this case happens to be the point 0, and -1. All right, so my first step here, I want to find my point. I want to find my point 0, -1. So that means in the middle, my first step, I'm just going to stay right here, but then I'm going to move down to -1. Okay, so there's my starting point. Now, the slope tells me how do I move from any given point on my line to find another point. Well, we already have a starting point right now. We have our point 0, -1. I'm going to use the slope. Since the slope is -4/1 and it's the rise over the run, since my top numbers are -4, I'm going to move down from that -1 spot. I'm going to move down 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, and to the right 1 space. Now all I'm going to do is draw my line connecting those 2 dots, and there's my line. Now again, one thing I would mention, if you recall when we did this back in 10.4, my slope is negative, and if you look at my line, our line is moving downward, right? All right, let's try another one, real similar. Excuse me. So here's my next problem, y equals 1/2 x plus 3. I'm going to go ahead and write out my y equals mx plus b form. And in here, I know that my m is 1/2. It's already a fraction, which is good. That's my rise over my run. And then our point 0b is going to be 0 and 3. Okay, so I'm first going to find my point 0, 3. Since this is the y-intercept, that first point is always going to fall on the y-axis. So I'm going to go up to 3. So here's my first point. Now, since my slope is 1/2, and we call the slope the rise over the run, that means I'm going to rise 1 spot, and I'm going to run 2 spaces to the right. And there's my line. Again, I want you to notice something here. My line here is positive, and our line is moving upward, right? My next problem here is 2x plus y equals 2. So again, my first step here is I'm going to write out my equation, y equals mx plus b. And when I look at this, and I look at the equation that I have, I can see that it's not in that form just yet. So if I write out my problem, 2x plus y equals 2, if I want to solve for y, I know I need to minus 2x on both sides. So now I'm going to have y equals a negative 2x plus 2. So now my m, my slope, is going to be negative 2, but I'm going to think about it as a fraction, negative 2/1. So I can think about my rise over my run. And then my y-intercept is going to be the point 0 and 2. All right, so my first step here, I'm going to plot my y-intercept at 0, 2. So I'm going to go up to 2. Remember what we said? The first point is always going to fall on the y-axis. Now, since my slope is negative 2/1, I need to move down 2 spaces, 1, 2, and to the right 1 space. And I will connect my dots. There's my line, negative slope. And again, I can see that my line is going downward. So again, I'm wanting to mention that the negative slope and the downward are two things that go hand in hand, right? You don't have to write these things down, but if you notice that you have a negative slope, your line should be moving down. Okay, let's try the next problem. So here I have 2x plus 3y equals 9. So again, my first step, I'm going to write out y equals mx plus b. And my line is 2x plus 3y is equal to 9. So I'm first going to minus 2x on both sides. So that's going to leave me with 3y equals a negative 2x plus 9. My next step is I want to solve for y, so I'm going to go ahead and divide everything here by 3. That's going to leave me with a y equals a negative 2/3 with an x, plus 3 divides into 9, 3 times. Okay, so now that I have that, I know here that my m is a negative 2 over 3, and my y-intercept is 0 and 3. So I'm going to go first to my point 0, 3 on the y-axis, right there. Now, since my slope is a negative 2 over 3, I need to move down 2 spaces, 1, 2, and to the right, 1, 2, 3 spaces. And here's my line. Going on to my next problem, again, I'm still graphing here, so my first step again is let me write out y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to write my equation right underneath it, negative 2x plus 5y equals a negative 10. I want to solve the equation for the letter y, so I'm going to go ahead and add 2x to both sides. So those will cancel. That's going to leave me with a 5y equals a 2x minus 10. Notice I can't combine them because one has an x, one doesn't. My last step here is I need to divide everything here by 5. So these 5's will cancel. So that's going to give me a y equals a 2 over 5 with an x minus 5 goes into 10 2 times. Okay, so for my problem here, my m is a positive 2 over 5. My y-intercept is a 0 and a negative 2. This is my first point. So there's my y-axis. 0, negative 2 would be down here at the bottom at 2. Since my slope is a positive 2 over 5, I'm going to rise 2 spaces, 1, 2, and I'm going to run 2 spaces to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Draw my line again. There we go. Again, positive slope, and my line is going up. Okay, let's try the next one. So if you notice this problem here, again, my basic form is my y equals mx plus b. So here, I already know that I'm in the same format. The y is by itself. My m would be negative 3, but I'm going to think about it as negative 3 over 1. My y-intercept is 0, and since there's no other number here, it's 0, 0. Okay, so let me go ahead and plot 0, 0. That's right there at the origin. Since my slope is a negative 3 over 1, I can move down 1, 2, 3, and to the right 1 space. And there's our line. The next problem here in 10.5 says, find an equation of a line with the given slope that passes through the given point. Write the equation in the form ax plus by equals c. Okay, so we'll figure out how to do this part here at the end. Oops. What we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and write out our equation y equals mx plus b. I'm going to use this information. So we already know here that our m is 6. And since the point that we're given is 2, 2, remember every point is written in the form x, y. So I already know a value of m, I know a value of x, I know a value of y. What I don't know right now is what's the value of b. So we're going to figure that out. So my first step is where the y used to be, I'm going to write my number 2. Oops. Maybe scroll down a little bit here. Okay, where my y used to be, I'm going to put my number 2 equals m, which is 6, times x, which is also 2, plus b. So now I'm going to write out 2 equals 6 times 2 is 12, plus b. I'll go ahead and minus 12 on both sides. That's going to give me a negative 10 equals b. All right, so now that I know that my b is negative 10, and we already knew that our m was equal to 6, let me get a different color now. When I write this equation, y equals mx plus b, I'm just going to fill in the blanks. Y equals m, which we said 6x. B is a negative 10. Let me get rid of, you know what, I go with this. Negative 10. But if you notice, they want me to write it like this. AX plus BY equals C. All they're telling me to do is put the X and the Y on the same side. I'm going to move this 6X to this side. And if I move that 6X over, it's actually going to become a negative 6X. That Y will stay positive, equals negative 10. And now we're done. Let's try the next one. Oops. And we'll do it the same way. So again, my first step here is, let me get my pen. Okay. My first step here, I'm going to write out y equals mx plus b. Oops. Again, here I already know that my m is a negative 8. The point that I have is negative 1, negative 5. So again, that's my x and that's my y. Right now, what I don't know what I have for b. Okay, so let's fill in the blanks. Where the y used to be, negative 5, equals, oops, where the m used to be, negative 8. Where the x used to be, negative 1 plus b. So that's negative 5 equals negative 8 times negative 1 is positive 8 plus b. I need to minus 8 on both sides. Oops. So that's going to leave me a negative 13 is equal to b. Now let me grab another pen. So again, I'm going to think about it like this. Y equals mx plus b. We already know that our m is equal to negative 8, and we just found our b to be a negative 13. So I'm going to write y equals negative 8x minus 13. And what I want to do now, I want to get the x and the y on the same side. So I'm going to move my negative 8x over this way. That's going to become a positive 8x plus y equals, again, a negative 13. All right, there's one more like this, so let's give this one a shot. Okay, so again, my first step here, let me write out y equals mx plus b. We already know that m is 2/3. Our point is negative 8, positive 9. So I know my x and my y. Again, I don't know my value of b. So we're going to go slow here. So where the y used to be, 9. Oops. Where the m used to be, 2/3. 2 over 3. Where the x used to be, negative 8, but I'm going to think about it as a fraction, negative 8 over 1 plus b. All right, my first step here, I'm going to multiply straight across. That's a negative 16 over 3 plus b. Oops. All right, I need to move my 16 over 3 over, so I'm going to go ahead and add 16 over 3 to both sides. Add 16 over 3. So those will cancel. Now, I'm going to think about this as 9 over 1 plus 16 over 3 is equal to b. I need to get a common denominator. Between 1 and 3, it should be 3. So I'm going to leave this as a 3, put that as a 3. I had to multiply 1 by 3, so I have to do this one by 3. That should give me a 27. Plus, I didn't change this one, so I'm not going to change that one. 16 equals b. All right, so now I'll just need to add 27 and 63, or 27 and 16. That should be a 43 over 3 is equal to b. All right, so that one required more work because we had fractions. But recall, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to write my equation in the form y equals mx plus b. So y equals m. M we already knew was 2/3. So 2 over 3x plus a 43 over 3 for b. My last step, because I'm trying to put it in that ax plus by format, I'm going to move my 2/3 x over. So that's going to become a negative 2/3 x plus y equals 43/3. And there's my equation. All right, the next problem here in 10.5 says, find an equation of the line passing through each pair of points. Write the equation of the form in ax plus by equals c. What's different about this problem here, these problems, compared to the last three we just did, in the last three we had a point, we had the slope. Right now we don't even have the slope, but we do have 2 points. So the fact that we have, 2 points tells me I can use my slope formula to find my m. So if you recall, I'm going to think of that one as my x1 and y1. That's my x2 and y2. Okay, so let's see, equals. So my y2 number is 6, minus my y1 number is 2, my x2 number is 5, minus my x1 number is 3. So 6 minus 2 is 4, 5 minus 3 is 2, 4 divided by 2 is just 2. Okay, so now we have a value for m. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to write my equation, y equals mx plus b. Now, when you're going to do this and you're going to use your point, it really doesn't make any difference whether we use the point 3,2 or whether we use the point 5,6. I'm going to use 3,2 just because my numbers are a little bit smaller. So just like we did in the problems before, we're going to plug in our x and y, we're going to plug in our m so that we can find our value for b. So where the y used to be, I'm going to put my number 2. Where my m is, I'm going to put 2 because we just found that. Where my x is, I'm going to put my number 3 plus b. So that's going to be equal to 2. 2 times 3 is 6 plus b. So when I minus 6 on both sides, I'm coming up with b is equal to negative 4. So we already know that b equals negative 4. Earlier we found m to be equal to 2. So now again, I want to come back to my equation right here and just fill in my blanks. So y equals 2x minus 4. I need to solve my equation and get the x and the y on the same side. So when we move that 2x over, it becomes a negative 2x plus y equals negative 4. Good. So let's try the last one here. My first step is I'm going to go ahead and find my slope. So I'm going to think that is my x1 and my y1. Here's my x2 and my y2. Again, my slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So my y2 number is a negative 5 minus 3 is my y1. My x2 number is a negative 2 minus my x1 number, a negative 1. Negative 5 minus 3 becomes a negative 8. Negative 2 minus 1, minus a negative 1, excuse me, becomes a negative 2 plus 1, which is negative 1. Negative 8 divided by negative 1 is a positive 8. Okay, so now right here I'm going to write out, I'm going to write out, why is my pen not working? Here we go. All right, so I'm going to write out y equals mx plus b. Again, what point do I use? It really doesn't matter. I'll use this one right here. So where the y used to be a negative 5 equals m, and we just found to be 8. X is negative 2 plus b. So negative 5 equals a negative 16 plus b. So I'm going to add 16 to both sides. That's going to give me a, not a negative 11, but a positive 11. Positive 11 is equal to b. So if I already know that b equals 11, and we already know that m equals 8, now let me go ahead and write out my equation in y equals mx plus b form. So y equals 8x plus 11. But again, I need to move my 8x over. Negative 8x plus y is equal to 11. And that's 10.5.